So good afternoon, and today is Mother's Day. So I want to say, especially to the mothers in the room, Happy Mother's Day, and to all of your mothers who may not be here, Happy Mother's Day to them as well. So in general, when one considers one's mother, it's very clear the great kindness that our mothers have shown us. So to look at it in a very coarse way, we here now sitting hearing a teaching of the Buddha Dharma, but we only can do that because at some point in the past our mothers gave birth to us, and not only that, but they cared for us for many years. And with this basis, we have now been able, many years later, to come and receive teachings here. In the Mahayana Dharma, the very first meditation that is unique to Mahayana Buddhism is the reflection of the connection that we have with all beings. That in this life we had a mother, and in previous lives we had a mother in each previous life too. So we come to see this relationship that we have with all beings, seeing them as having been mothers to us, one in this life, one in each preceding life. And come to see that we have this relationship with all beings. And in the same way that our mother has shown us so much kindness from the point she became aware of our conception, and then throughout the process of birth and caring as we grew up, our mothers have shown us such kindness in past lives too. And it's because today then is the specific day that we are encouraged to remember the kindness of our mothers. Then I want to again say my warm greetings to the mothers in the room, and if your mums aren't here, then through you I send my warm greetings to your mothers. And today then we are talking about the opportune and the rare. So what does this then refer to? This refers to this particular rebirth that we've achieved, this rebirth that is of a human being. So this rebirth is marked by freedoms and endowments, or freedoms and endowments. And these are the basis upon which this is the basis that we've received, that is what we call a human life. So we'll look firstly at what is meant by freedoms and endowments, or the opportune and the rare. And these are something that are considered to be very precious. So we'll look at why they're considered to be precious. And then in terms of the lives, this life we've achieved now, how did we go about in past lives accumulating the causes for this opportunity we're experiencing now, as well as how to accumulate the causes so as to ensure we have similar good rebirths in our future lives. So that's what we're going to look at now, what is meant by these freedoms and endowments, why they're considered so precious, and how to keep achieving them.
유딘 들라 즉 마송다 된주 간송 유딘 세 냐와이다 된주기 대제 안내하는 중에 된주 제라 타다 미 유딘 세 된주 유딘 나송 유딘 세 이시고와
that the various realms in which beings can take rebirth. We're born in what's called the happy migrations, that of a human being, and there's also the God realms, that these two together would be considered the happy migrations. Then the lower realms, the three suffering lower realms, where the suffering is so much more pronounced, then these comprise of either the hell realms or the spirit realms and the animal realms. So they're the three suffering realms and the two happier realms. This physical basis of that is marked in a happy, that is achieved in a happy migration, is only experienced by humans or gods. It's not experienced in any of the lower realms, or cannot be achieved in any of the lower realms. So whilst a physical basis that is so precious is achieved in the happier migrations, it's actually not pervasive throughout all the happy migrations, because those, for example, in the God realms, do not have all the 10 qualities, the 10 and 8 qualities that make up the freedoms and endowments. These aren't all present in the God realms. What is meant by these freedoms and endowments? Well, we'll look at this now. There are 8 freedoms and there are 10 endowments. So together they comprise 18 different qualities. 8 freedoms, 10 endowments. The 8 freedoms then, so these are states that one is free from, hence they're called the 8 freedoms. So one is free from being born in the lower realms, as in the hell realms, so that's one freedom. One's free from being born in the spirit realms. One is free from being born in the animal realms. And furthermore, one is free from being born as a long life God. So these are 4 of the 8 freedoms, so states that one is free from. Moreover, one has the freedom of not having complete sense faculties. So one's hearing and sight, one has these completely, they are functioning properly. Also, one is free from having severe wrong views. So these are 6. And then one is free from being born in, it's called a border country or a barbarian land. So a place where the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma is not present. And one is, then the last freedom, is free from being born in a time when a Buddha hasn't appeared in the world.
대소 나서라 깨바나 dundual ke sona cheche ko ra mare ane idala ke na cheche ko yo mare nyawala ke na cheche ko ra yo mare jesa desul mara wanza dawa so dawa desul ke na cheche ko ra yo mare.
So these are called freedoms because we are free from being born in a state where if one were born, one couldn't practice the Dharma. It would not be possible. So if one were born into one of these unseen realms, realms such as the hells or the spirit realms, then one is unable to practice the Dharma. The Dharma is not present there. One doesn't have the capacity to practice. And if one was born in one of the seen realm of the animal world, we know from animals they don't have the intellectual ability or the sense faculties to be able to engage in spiritual development. So to be born in such a realm is an unfree state. One does not have the freedom to practice the Dharma or to develop spiritually. So that's why this term freedoms is used. We have attained a state free from a position where one is unable to practice the Dharma.
yu thagop le kya wai na ane che sha ko pra lo ma yu thagop se di ane che me kan che she kan ji ke me de kan ane ji ji ke khor nam shi sa ji su go san yu chen men de khor nam chen de ji ke long da ane ge su la so ba da ane ji ke long pa ma ni sa da de ne ane ji yin da ji yin pa ma de ne gi me de kan che che se ki ne me de ke lo ba ji yu da ke wai mi ke wai na da ha le ke wai na da che xiang ko lo ma lo de che xiang ko la go ma ji da yu ta de ni ge che yang men che se che xie sa me gen de ni ge lu ba de ya ne je ani ge je mi li ke wa na ha le ke wa na da de lu ba de le ge je lu ba de la de che na ka sa mi se le ge de ba na ji ga ya ne che xiang ko ko ha la go ma le che yu ta zai de ne chi ko.
Then the freedom of not being born in a border country. So this refers to those who have achieved a rebirth as a human or perhaps as a god, but in the environment that they are living in, the Dharma, the Buddhist teachings are not present. So in the text, this is referred to as the four retinues of the Buddha are not present. So what the four retinues refer to, the ordained, both monks and nuns, and the non-ordained, both men and women. So these are the four circles of the Buddha's followers. So if they are not present, then it's not a place where the Dharma is present, because there won't be teachers and there won't be beings who have a teaching and practicing the Dharma. So that is the state that lacks freedom of being born in a border country, a place where the Dharma is not present.
And then this is on me, the Niki Milky Way, and the church is a about the such that the church, your church, and the church, so to be already in a social one, the Niki engine on the church, or Ragoma, the Niki Chevenet, and the Suy in a church called Ragoma,
and the freedom of being free of having incomplete faculties. So this refers to those who are born as a human, and they are in a place where the Dharma abides, where there are qualified teachers and practitioners, but they have incomplete faculties. So for example, they are blind and they can't read, or they're deaf and they can't hear teachings, or they suffer from a severe mental impediment, and therefore meditation is particularly difficult. So they have around them, they have the birth of a human, and around them the opportunities to engage in cultivation of the meditations of the Buddha, but they have these the impairment in terms of their sense faculties. So we have achieved a state that is freed from that, freed of having incomplete faculties.
Dene lokda jenso da dene gang juge chue ji so yoba ane chue shigen yosa ane nga juge ongbo chasang sang yoba yin ya sem tang tang yoge ongbo amcho tangbo yoba mi da chasang tangbo yoba ji ge wa yin ya ane ya ji le sang ge yoba le sia da ane le yu le yoba le ge wa ma ma de chi ma yoba le sia de ane chue yoba le sia dene gi lokda ji ge wa yin da wa dene ji yoba yin
And so then the next freedom refers to being freed of holding wrong views. So this refers to someone who's born as a human. They're in a place where the Buddhist teachings exist, and they are qualified teachers and practitioners. They also have the required sense faculties, sight and sound, and are sound intelligence. But they have severe wrong views. For example, they don't accept that Buddhahood is possible. They don't, and therefore don't accept that Buddhas exist. They don't believe in cause and effect or in karma. They don't believe in past and future lives, in reincarnation. So due to these wrong views, they lack freedom to engage in the spiritual development of the Buddha Dharma. Then I think the last freedom, or the next freedom, that relates then to being where one has attained rebirth as a human being, one's sense faculties are in sound order, one has intelligence, one is not overcome by wrong views. But if a Buddha had not appeared in the world, that means no teachings of the Buddha would exist in the world. So if one was born into such a world, then one would again not have the freedom to engage in the spiritual development of the Buddha Dharma, because there would be no teachings available, because the Buddha hadn't appeared in the world. And then the last freedom refers to being free of being born as a particular type of God, a long life God. And so there are many types of gods, but this refers to a particular God, where they have exceptionally long lives, but the real lack of freedom comes from they only have two, maybe we could say, conscious thoughts throughout this long life. The awareness that they've been born, and then at the time of death, the awareness that this is now the time of death. This whole period between that, they are not engaged in any conceptual thought, perhaps one can say. And so therefore, they lack the freedom to engage in spiritual development.
但今年这样这个告诉我老大姐满意吧，我当然这个关键点点数呢，确实的关键数点点数呢，也不有这个你来点嘛是吧？点点这个，所以我呢，告诉我，但那个他们老巴塞是过的，那个他们老巴塞的，那些那个这个这属于老大嘛，就说，但刚才呢，到了我就没理解我的，没理解把那往我唱就过的，没理解往我唱吧，现在这个老大姐满意吧，点点数确实点不有吧，这我都是呢，我唱完的了，让着嘛，所以我们推荐过的了。
So those are the 8 freedoms that we have all attained. We have attained a rebirth free of those impediments to spiritual development. Then there's the also 10 endowments. So the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments. So these are divided into 2, those relating to oneself and those relating to perhaps one could say one's environment. So these 10 then, or two groups of 5, there's some overlap with the 8 freedoms. So you'll hear some now for the second time. So in terms of the 5 endowments relating to oneself, so the first is that one has the endowment of being born as a human. Then secondly, not only is one born as a human, but one is born in a central land. So you have the freedom of not being born in a border country, but rather one is born in a central land. So this means we're born somewhere where there are qualified teachers as well as fellow practitioners, and thereby one can engage in spiritual development. And thirdly, one doesn't have any impediments in terms of one's sense faculties. And fourthly, then one is not overcome by any wrong views, but moreover, one has faith and confidence in the 3 jewels, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And fifthly, one has not committed one of the very strong misdeeds or negative karmas of immediate retribution. So these are the 5 endowments relating to oneself, born as a human in a central land with complete sense faculties and not having any wrong views, nor having committed any particularly powerful negative deeds.
那你那个说句话呢，说比如讲话的，我们唱话就有时讲话些，那个他们老话些，那这个我今天西北呢，那个说呢，今天说了点吧有吧，今天西北呢，那说句我的推荐唱呢，这现在我的推荐唱就过过了吧，那今天选举啊，是吧？选举啊就开始是呢，商业准备的，商业怎么来的捐钱。配合就就是过，商业马尾就做了点呢，那就台湾的确切和我嘛，其实商业捐吧，这商业怎么来的呀？但对嘛，现在推广我的那些现在呢，教育这个那么短的吧，去所有要把这商业捐吧过来，按这样的呀，告诉的商业捐吧呢，商业配呢，商业去送面呢，就你们结果要嘛，其实商业配吧这商业去送吧就过来，商业去送人呢呀。大家来咱们这个研究面呢，按做路了，准备这个做路，今天咱们这边呢，往西海要嘛了，没完这，你这商业去送吧的呀，咱们这些，去对看，那么咱们这对这个就过来这的，告诉商业捐吧，去捐吧了，咱们这也了解。那个说是呢，去这个推荐路线，然后这个去这个说上去你们钱，然后这个别人觉得推荐就过了，推荐没呢，这个才对关键的，那这个去这个目标嘛，其实去这个推荐也把钱，那让别人呢，那去结巴了呀，推荐进大陆不钱，进大陆要把这个进大陆过了，我今天去过来些，那这个。先就是嘛，现在那个推荐唱就过来。
Geshe Rabten,商
业点把2把送的，商业去送去2节，点把2把钱是，商业去送2节，人家商业点把早送完的。商业捐把钱，商业捐把的钱，商业去送把钱，商业点把2把钱，那咱们这个给微信约把的钱。他们的那推荐，去这个推荐，3个月的人家推荐的，老百姓其他也把这个来钱。
then the endowments that relate to other, so perhaps we can say the circumstances around the practitioner. So these then are the 5 here. First, that a Buddha has appeared in the world, and secondly, that the Buddha appeared and taught the Buddha Dharma. Because if the Buddha had just appeared, but not taught, then we wouldn't be able to engage in any spiritual development ourselves. And thirdly, that the teachings have not died out, they remain in the world. And then fourthly, not only do they remain in the world, but they remain in that they have been realized by fellow practitioners and teachers. So it's not just that the teachings remain in the world, it's that they are being practiced and they are being taught. And therefore, having this endowment means that one can receive teachings and train with companions. And then finally, that one has favorable material or favorable circumstances, which would mean for the ordained having benefactors, for all practitioners to have a suitable material, and as well as other supportive conditions that are required. So these are the 5 endowments relating to, not to oneself, but to one's environment, that the Buddha has appeared in the world, taught, the teachings remain, that there are those who have realizations of the teachings and are teaching them, and one has fellow practitioners, that's the 4th one, and the 5th is that one has favorable circumstances. A rebirth, a human rebirth that is marked by having these 8 freedoms, being free from these unfavorable states, as well as a rebirth that is marked by these 5 favorable conditions related to oneself, as well as the endowments related to one's environment. A rebirth marked by these 18 qualities is called a precious rebirth, in particular a precious human rebirth. The reason then that it is called precious is in the same way, for example, if one has a diamond, this diamond is considered to be precious because of the value that we know this object has, and its value is in relation to what can be achieved. If one, for example, sells the diamond, one can do many things with the money one would get for selling the diamond. So knowing the value of this diamond is in terms of what one can achieve with it. So for that reason, we call a diamond precious, and for that same reason, we call a human rebirth that is marked by these 18 qualities as precious, a precious human rebirth. We've heard what these 18 qualities are, and so it's for yourselves as you're hearing them. You would have been thinking, do I have this, do I have that? So you would have been investigating and seeing whether your human rebirth, which for sure everyone here I think has, is precious or not. And most probably everyone here has a human rebirth that would be called precious.
상지 却送有的送给的是对了大大差别，상지却送里边的两人节说的先看给别新人越把的差上差别了，今天在俺就有点的，连去米人不切赛的差别热点。
So I think I can say with confidence that probably everyone here has a precious human rebirth, because for sure you're all humans, so no one has been born in any of the lower realms. No, there's no hell beings or spirits or animals amongst us, and there's no one who's born as a long life God. Furthermore, I assume everyone's sense powers are in good stead, so one can read and listen, and one's intelligence is good, so one can understand and contemplate. And moreover, being here, then you are most probably not overcome by wrong views, but rather have faith in the three baskets that the Buddha taught, or in the Buddha's teachings. And moreover, we're living in a world where the Buddha has appeared and taught, and his teachings remain. And not only do they remain in a maybe you could say in a static form, but they remain in a living form, in that there are beings in the world who have given rise to realizations in their own continuum of the teachings from the Buddha. So therefore, they are and do teach based both on knowledge and experience. And moreover, there are many fellow practitioners who are studying these teachings, who are meditating on these teachings. So one has companions in this world. And also certainly in a country such as ours, one has favorable circumstances, the freedom to engage in spiritual development. So if we look at our life, this is certainly a life that we can call precious. At the start of our talk, I mentioned that we're going to first look at what is meant by the freedom and endowment. So we've looked at that. Now we're already well into the second part of why such a rebirth that is marked by these 18 qualities is called precious. And it's important. This presentation is of great importance because we need to recognize what we have achieved and its great value. Because if we recognize what we have achieved and its great value, we're not going to take it for granted. And we're not going to let this opportunity go to waste. And this is particularly important because this life is considered, this life that's marked by these 18 freedoms and endowments, as being so precious because of what we can achieve with this. It's not marked as precious because we've achieved it, but it's marked as considered precious because of what we can do with this. So in terms of the main objectives, or in terms of the objectives of Buddhist practice, this physical basis that we've achieved, this life, this is completely suitable to ensure that we accumulate an abundance of causes that will lead to good rebirths in not just our next life, but many future lives, and not fall into the suffering lower realms. Moreover, on the basis of greater knowledge and generating strong endeavor, we can give rise to a sincere commitment to abandon cyclic existence, all the sufferings of the samsaric rebirth completely, and attain a state that is liberated from suffering, a state of lasting stable happiness. This can be achieved on this basis of this very rebirth. And moreover, if we take that understanding and develop it further by applying that realization in terms of one's own situation, and seeing how all other beings are suffering in the same way as we are, and long for lasting stable happiness in the same way as we do, in this way we can give rise to the altruistic mind of universal responsibility and strive for and achieve enlightenment, and become a being that has perfected all good qualities and completely eliminated all faults, and thereby be of greatest benefit to others. So that too is possible on this basis that we have achieved, this human precious rebirth. So it's important here that we recognize what we have achieved, that we see we've achieved these 18 qualities and their great value. Because if, for example, someone finds or is given a bag of uncut diamonds, so it's a large bag, it's maybe got 1 kilo of uncut diamonds, they open it, they look and they see a bunch of grubby stones, not very appealing, no sparkle to them, and they maybe discard it, or they think, oh well, it's a gift, I better keep it, and they put it in a cupboard. What a waste. What a waste of what they could do if they took it to a gem dealer, had it valued. Their lives would be transformed, their families' lives would be transformed, probably their communities' lives would be transformed. So they would only make such a mistake, not intentionally, but they would make such a mistake based on the ignorance of not understanding the value of what had been achieved. So therefore, it is so important to recognize the great value of what we've achieved. Because if we do, we then will ensure we don't let this opportunity go to waste. And from this mind that is committed to using our life well, great benefit will come for ourselves as well as others in this very life, as well as from life to life. In terms then of utilizing this precious life in the most beneficial, most important of ways, this then refers specifically to spiritual practice, to cultivating the minds of the Dharma within oneself.
Dunga say and the you do mother shada, Shioma, Dunga say the Pichela Beja Tanji, Ma Yapje, Tushi Beja, Dunga say to Dunga Manga. In the page of Tony, Digi, your mother, Toya, your mother, everyone's at the man to the church, and some you are on Bom Yamnche, and it some you are dancing, and you chin Yamnche, and Digi to go to my say, which is a church, you could be garrison. The niggy in you kept you about the la, and you should have the opportunity that the 두고래 동안 세 두고 지상도 난다래 디기 주변에 동안 세야래 디인자 디기 주변에 동안 세야다 최년의 제일마도 현다기 디기 주변에 동안 세 투야지 요만해세.
So why do we say that the most important way to use this precious life is to cultivate the minds of the Buddha Dharma within oneself? And this is because all of us are the same. Myself, all of you, and everyone in society, and not only humans, but all beings are the same in wanting to experience only happiness. This is our sincerest, innermost wish. Everything we do is motivated to experience happiness. And to experience happiness, we try and repel all our problems and our difficulties in life because we want to experience happiness. This is our deepest desire. And the only way that one can achieve a state of lasting, stable happiness that is not punctuated by even the subtlest or the slightest problem or difficulty is through cultivating the teachings of the Buddha within oneself. It is the only technique that can lead to this. Warfare or other forms of conflict, this does not lead to happiness. Soldiers may be sent into battle, but happiness never results from that. Those who strive to achieve great wealth and do so, or those who perhaps inherit great wealth, they're not basking in happiness. They too suffer and experience problems. Those who physically look quite fabulous, they too are not living lives of continuous happiness. They too suffer and have problems. So all of us, having achieved this human rebirth that is so precious, we have the ability to develop ourselves spiritually and achieve a state of lasting happiness, a state that is completely free from all forms of suffering and difficulty. And in terms of when is the time to cultivate the mind of the Buddha Dharma, if we look at our situation and we use our reasoning and our intelligence, there is only one answer, and that is right now. We should not allow ourselves to be deceived by procrastination and think, oh, I have too much going on in my life. As soon as these circumstances are changed, I will then have time. Because this deception will waste years and years, and perhaps our entire life. This opportunity we have now is finite. It will end. Death will definitely end it, but also the favorable circumstances that we have now to spiritually develop, these may end. These may end by death or through our circumstances in life changing. So this fabulous opportunity that we have right now is finite. It will end. So therefore, the very best time to engage in spiritual development is right now. And how then to practice? Well, in brief, we can say we need to turn away from the negative side, turn away from the direction that leads only to suffering, and we need to turn towards the side of happiness, the virtuous side, the side that only leads to happiness. In brief, that is what is meant by practicing. to be able to turn away from the side of suffering and to the side of happiness, it's imperative to hear teachings. It's imperative to hear teachings because one has to cultivate knowledge. Without having knowledge cultivated, how can one practice? How can one engage in meditation if one doesn't know what one should be meditating on? So therefore, the first step is to receive teachings and to develop knowledge. The first step then is to be able to practice. One needs to be able to practice, to have faith in the three jewels, in the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, the Sangha jewel. And why this is so important is in order to engage in the cultivation of the minds of the Buddha Dharma, one has to have faith that the Buddha Dharma is the path that leads to happiness, the path that eliminates suffering. Without this conviction, this faith or this conviction, this confidence, then one is not going to make much effort to cultivate these minds within oneself if one doesn't see the benefit in doing so. So therefore, one needs to have faith or trust or conviction in the Buddha, the Buddha's teachings, and the Sangha. And in terms of meditation or contemplation, the first general topic is to cultivate the thought that from today, from this moment on, from this meditation on, I will not engage in any activity that brings harm to others. I won't physically engage in any activity that brings harm. The way I verbally communicate, I will ensure does not bring harm to others. And moreover, I will guard my mind. I will subdue my mind and ensure my mind doesn't go in a direction that is harmful towards others. For this meditation on ethical conduct, there's this commitment not to bring harm to others. For it to have a potency or power within oneself, the preceding step, that of refuge or trust and faith in the three jewels, this needs to be followed by a reflection on this opportunity that we've achieved through having this precious human rebirth. And through generating the sense of joy and strength of mind, we then are ready to engage in meditation. So the starting point of meditation should be to develop the strength of mind through refuge and through recognizing this precious rebirth that we've achieved. Then the second step from that is to reflect on the suffering that we experience. No one wants to suffer. Calling to mind our suffering experiences will naturally lead to the wish to be freed of these suffering experiences, and not just temporarily, but to be completely free. We all want to have an existence that is never punctuated by problems or difficulties. So we reflect on suffering and the wish to be freed from suffering. Then that leads into the third step of the meditation on ethics. And this is where we make the commitment not to bring harm to others. And in particular, in the mental sphere, for the mind not to go in a direction wanting to bring harm to others or harm to come to others. And that mind will subdue harmful physical and verbal behavior. And then how does this mind of ethics follow from the wish not to suffer and to be liberated from suffering? It follows because it's through bringing harm to others that we create the causes for suffering. So recognizing that it's through in cultivating non-virtue, through bringing harm to others, that we create the causes to suffer, and we have this wish to be free of suffering, we then can make, in a sincere way, not just mere words, but in a sincere way, the commitment not to bring harm into the lives of others. So the sequence is important because we start by bringing joy and strength to the mind, wanting to engage in the meditation, and then reflecting on suffering, liberation, giving rise to the wish to be liberated from this, will naturally lead to the mind wanting to not engage in behavior that leads to suffering. And thereby, with this wish, we can much more easily give rise to this mind of ethical conduct, this commitment not to harm others. Then the next step in the meditation. So here, in the preceding step, we just made the commitment with my body, speech and mind not to bring harm to others. Now we turn that around. Rather, I'm not going to bring harm to others, but I'm going to bring benefit I'm going to act in a way beneficial to others. I'm going to bring happiness into the lives of others. In particular, I'm going to watch my mind. And not only will I prevent it from going in the direction of bringing harm to others, but rather I will turn it in a direction wanting others to experience happiness, wanting to bring benefit into the lives of others. And thereby ensure that my physical behavior not only doesn't harm others, but where I can, I will benefit others physically. And my way of verbally communicating, not only will I ensure that I don't bring harm to others, but whenever I can, I'll communicate in a way that benefits others.
And ma mi jo shanda ya kanga semje le du le and mi de kanga nyamta de ya chi ma bien ju to lo ka le ji la ji le kanga se wo de kanga se ya da de ya ji so su yu yuan den be ju da de sam lu xi yun de lo bo ji je kanga se ya ma ji so su lu be je da je an ji lo bo le ga lo bo ji kanga se ya ji sa de ne za Luma usumi kwenye shani ya pembe chawa kana chunda duguis sisa rangu luma usumi ene rangu lu lonja kana na sha semje thamjela ya jegin sabige samlo cha ya de da rangu luma chasa ya konjo ya pigin sabige de ne ge samlo cha ya ji na jin be nyam ne se ore jing do di samlo de yang ne sam ta cha sam na ya jang do che de ge chi bu che bo
So that's the preceding step where we're committing not to bring harm to others. This is the practice of ethical conduct. This step now, where we're meditating on being of benefit to others, this is the practice of generosity. So this then is done through reflecting on, we've already generated the mind of faith and trust and conviction in the three jewels. So here in one's meditation, one makes offerings of one's resources, one's body, to the three jewels and to the teacher. Moreover, in one's meditation, one offers one's resources to helping those in need. So here one is generating this strong wish that whatever I have, not just material resources, but also my own inner qualities and my skills, my abilities, may I use these to bring benefit into the lives of others. May I use these to reduce the suffering that others are tormented by. May I use these to repay the kindness that others have shown me directly or indirectly. So here we're generating a strong wish to utilize, first of all, this recognition of the interconnected relationship we have with all others, and the wish to bring benefit into the lives of others. So this is a mind we need to cultivate repeatedly over a sustained period, and where we have actual ability to physically help others, whether it's materially making offerings to the lama and the three jewels, or to materially help those in need, or to utilize our skills and abilities to help others, we should do so. Where our resources are limited, we can still help others in terms of developing the aspiration in meditation. And especially developing this aspiration repeatedly, then this mind of wanting to benefit others, this mind of wanting to alleviate the suffering of others, or the mind of wanting to bring happiness into the lives of others, will grow ever more dominant within us and will permeate our activities. So this practice of generosity is a very important practice as well. This practice of generosity, this is something that we need to cultivate within our minds, in our meditation repeatedly over a sustained period. The practice of generosity, or this word practice, literally means to gain experience of. So to gain experience of this mind of generosity is something that we should do repeatedly. And if we do so in our meditation, then in our daily activities, whenever we presented with an opportunity where we can actually help others, where we can bring benefit into the lives of others, again, whether it's to do so materially or to do so with our skills and our inner qualities, we will wholeheartedly offer service. We will want to help. We won't need to be encouraged. We won't need to be shamed to help others. We will want to help others. This will arise naturally within us because of the meditations we have been doing. And moreover, where one does not have the material resources to help, or the skills to help when those are required, still in meditation generate the wish to do so. Generate the wish, may I have this ability in the future to be able to help. When I have this ability in the future, may I do so wholeheartedly and spontaneously. And why it is so important to do these meditations is twofold. One, because through the meditation, one will naturally help in when the opportunity comes, and moreover, one will seek out such opportunities. But also, the mental training serves to overcome the mind that is contrary to generosity, and that's the mind of miserliness. So generosity, this is a mind that is focused on the benefit of others, clearly a virtuous mind. The mind of miserliness, this is a self-centered mind. This is an afflicted mind. And being an afflicted mind, it's an obstacle to the attainment of liberation and enlightenment and needs to be abandoned. So therefore, we need to generate this mind of generosity, cultivated within ourselves. And where we have the abundant resources and skills and talents, use these to help others. Where we don't, that's okay. Keep generating and developing this mind within ourselves.
And so you get to come and take the new Matu come and take the same Matuba, same corner that same Matuba, in just do to yet. And then I just also the end as that the same Matuba, what I didn't send in Japan due to what they like, and then Sibin and Miss Denigi, Geshe.
The third practice that is imperative to cultivate, and it follows on from the mind of ethics, this mind committed not to harm others, and follows on from the mind of generosity, the mind wanting to benefit others. This third practice is the practice of patience. So patience then refers to that whenever one is faced with adversity, when one is faced with unwanted circumstances, that one's mind remains undisturbed. At the very coarsest level, where one is not patient, is where anger arises, or frustration, or annoyance arises. So patience then is a mind that is not at all angry. In fact, it's a mind that's undisturbed. It's a mind that remains open, calm, spacious. No matter what circumstances one encounters, if one is patient, one's mind remains open and spacious. So if we think of, for example, inner situations where we are dealing with our own inner turmoil, perhaps we are ill and then great fear arises about this illness, or we're experiencing pain and again fear arises together with this pain. So here the mind of patience is required, to keep our mind calm and undisturbed, spacious, so that we can deal with the situation skillfully. Or when we experience problems from the outer world, especially from other people. So here we have plenty of experience, perhaps in one's workplace, with some work colleagues, or in general, whether it's in work, our social life, or our home life, when there are those who stand in the way of our wishes being achieved, those who prevent us from having things the way we want, or achieving things that we want to achieve. So these usually serve to upset us. And when we're getting upset, our wisdom isn't able to be engaged, and we're not able to deal with that situation skillfully. Moreover, we may bring harm to others, go against our ethics, certainly won't help others, and won't fulfill our wish of generosity. So here the mind of patience in these circumstances is still to keep the mind open and spacious, undisturbed in the face of adversity. And in addition to patience, there's a mind that also needs to be cultivated called joyous perseverance. And this is a mind that takes delight in virtue. So here where one thinks about where one has guarded one's ethics well and has not brought harm to others, but rather one practiced generosity and acted in a way that was beneficial to others. Here one should take delight in this, giving rise to the wish, I'm seeing progress. I want to continue my meditation and ensure that I continue to be of ever greater benefit to others, and don't add to the suffering and harm in the lives of others, but rather bring benefit to others. And moreover, where we've encountered difficult circumstances, whether from others or to do with our own inner turmoil, and we've dealt with this skillfully, kept our minds spacious and calm. Here, where we practice virtuously, generate joy and delight in our accomplishments, and generate the wish, may I continue to do so, right? Continue to do so and bring benefit into the lives of others.
ane ching이 냠는 데는 거 제발 ane 저게 ane 기딘의 차랍 봐도 ane 저게 상기 댐바단 자와쇼서 ane 최시gen 기회신이 생긴 기회신 야고 생기는 데가 아 체제 난 기회신 전에 ane 최시제 내가 냠는 제 야고라쇼 세디 안데니 콜람게.
Following these four practices of ethics, generosity, patience, and joyous perseverance, then prayer is important. So here one is generating the strong aspiration within oneself that until I attain the state of a Buddha, until I achieve the state of a Buddha, a being that's perfected all qualities and completely eliminated all faults, from life to life, until that happens, may I always be born in places where my lama is, meet him at a young age, recognize his qualities, receive teachings, and train and develop these teachings within myself, with having faith and conviction in the teachings of the Buddha Dharma, always motivated by altruism, wanting to bring greatest benefit to others. If we reflect on our experiences in this life and the many problems and difficulties that we have encountered up to date, if we're honest with ourselves, many of them have come about due to ourselves not guarding our ethics well, from having a mental attitude of that hasn't been subdued and restrained, a mental attitude of wanting to harm others. Because this is what has led us to physically engage with others in a harmful way, or to speak to others in a harmful way. So if we reflect like this, we will see that when we haven't been ethical, this is when we have encountered a lot of problems ourselves, as well as brought problems into the lives of others. So where we have not been ethical, this has resulted in problems for others and ourselves. So therefore, if we turn away from this way of thinking and behaving, this will lead to far fewer problems in our life, far fewer problems in the lives of others. Also, our mind will be much more peaceful, much calmer, and therefore we will experience greater happiness. Also, we'll have better relations with others, and others will experience more happiness. So even from just the perspective of this life, and this is the perspective Buddhism doesn't usually talk about. Buddhism really talks about our future lives. But even from the perspective of this life, developing an ethical outlook has great benefits for ourselves right now, as well as others. And if we have a wish for a good rebirth in the future lives, we have a fear of falling into the lower realms, then being ethical, generating this mind of ethics again and again, the stronger we generate this, each and every ethical mind is a cause, that is a karmic seed that's been created, a cause that will lead to a good rebirth. So the stronger this mind of ethics, and the more frequently it's generated, the stronger and greater number of causes we create for good rebirths. So that's an important reason to generate this mind of meditation again and again. And if we have a wish to attain liberation from suffering in its entirety, or even enlightenment, then ethical conduct is the essential basis from which all other good qualities grow. So ethics is required for the achievement of these goals as well. So therefore the practice of ethics is essential for both this and future lives.
차상 거부수야 차야 거부차 미션다게 오다 미디게 아무도 세대 소소야 거부슈차니 조보차다 년차다 세디게 삼다가네 현이가라 대지와 투에 두두고래 안지게 아저 탈바다 탐지키미 고바 삼다네 아저 집이 냠네 야슈 철셔 다도 탈바다 탐지키미 고바래 다 녀주고래 대개와 치마 삼하면은 아저리야 지게 개와 치마야 미리게베네 변조다 투게 양고 우도 삼반은 세디기 진배 냠는 제도 소소리 개와 치마 가와 개베네 투게 양고 차래 미리게 두네 투게 양고 차래 미리게 봐도네 샘제 두르시 개베네 그러나 고야사야 투게 되게 양고 차도 거래 지상 진배 냠는 데랑 그 제바이나 개와 치마이네야 아니 지게 소소리 투게 양고야 안 세디리네 장래 판도 현래 판도 되게 안 탈바다 참지게 보고 쓰면은 이게 집에 냠는이야 이거 쳐줘야 다 녀줘야 이내자 예치 모시고 시작하고.
The second practice, this other focused mind of generosity, is a practice of great importance. So all the what we have achieved in this life in terms of favorable material circumstances, our health, etc., this has come about due to the causes we've accumulated in past lives of practicing generosity. Generosity, whether generosity towards both categories of the lama and the three jewels, as well as to suffering sentient beings. So we are experiencing in this life the results of our activities in our past lives. And through practicing generosity right now, in this very life, benefits are experienced, as well as will be experienced in our future lives. So through cultivating this other-centered mind, this other-focused mind, and practicing generosity with a mind of wanting to bring benefit to others, so practicing generosity, whether it's in a material sense, or whether it is in terms of our qualities and our skills and talents, however we practice generosity, this brings benefit to others immediately in this life. So we're bringing happiness into the lives of others. Moreover, we're lessening their problems and their difficulties too. And from this activity, of course, happiness arises within us, joy arises within us. So therefore, through developing an outlook of wanting to be of benefit to others, and then doing so, there's happiness comes to ourselves and others. Others also then respond to us in a very different way. They see us as a friend. They see us as someone they can rely on, turn to in need. So we have good relations with others. And then in terms of the benefits that come in future lives, well, the practice of generosity accumulates accumulates karma, and these are causes that ripen in having good material circumstances and health in our future lives. And also in terms of accumulating causes towards the achievement of the great spiritual goals of liberation from suffering and enlightenment itself. So in our future lives, even if one happens to be born in the lower realms, to say an animal, we see from experience that some animals, perhaps your pets at home, have very good conditions. They're warm, they're never hungry, perhaps they're a bit fat. So they have very different conditions from other animals. And this is a result of their practices of generosity in the past. But for ourselves, hopefully in our future lives, we were born as humans. And our practice of generosity, this is experienced through having comfortable material circumstances and health, and not going without. The third practice of patience is too one of great importance. So hopefully when you're hearing this talk, you're reflecting on your own lives to see the validity of what's being said in terms of if one is not ethical, if this is what the results were, when one has practiced generosity, what the results were. And likewise with patience. So if you look at your own life and see when others, perhaps take an example of when others have been abusive towards oneself, maybe spoken to one in an inappropriate manner. When we have responded as good as we get, in general that makes the situation a whole lot worse. The person that is giving us a hard time, they just get angrier. And we, of course, are upset, hence we spoke to them in that way. And the situation just gets worse, the conflict grows. And next time that we see each other, even if we don't meet, no one is pleased to see the other person. So we see that when we are not patient, then our problems multiply. Or in terms of our own inner turmoil, when our mental state isn't good, when we're not happy with ourselves, we're just having a bad day, if we're not dealing skillfully with this, and we are likely to take it out on others. And this just makes us feel worse, and we feel guilt and regret afterwards. And of course, just brings unhappiness into the lives of that unfortunate person that we came into contact with. So where we haven't been patient, this has just exacerbated problems and difficulties. So the mind of patience is a mind that stays open and spacious in the face of adversity. And this then enables the patient person to respond in a way that's skillful, which may be staying silent, it may be apologizing, it may be pointing out the mistaken understanding that has led to this situation. But by having a mind that's open and spacious and calm, there is the possibility to respond skillfully, because one isn't doing so under the control of destructive emotions. And by having a calm mind, oneself is not suffering, and one responding skillfully tends to calm the other person down, ease their inner turmoil, ease their suffering. So in this way, the practice of patience brings great benefit to oneself as well as to others, and leads to what was potentially harmful, destructive relationships. Instead of those being developed, friendships can be developed. So the benefits to self and others in this life are clear, and moreover, through the good karma that one accumulates, the attainment of the goals of liberation and enlightenment approach. And in terms of the karmic seeds that are created, when these ripen in our future lives, they ripen in that our sense powers are complete, and physically we are attractive and pleasing to others, but moreover our personality, this others find pleasing, and furthermore we have harmonious relationships with others. And that also then has an impact on our endeavors being successful, and through our altruistic attitude, we are able to have a beneficial impact on the lives of others. So these are all the results that come in future lives through being patient now, as well as, of course, happiness to ourselves, as well as others in this very life. Joyous perseverance, the fourth of the practices, is too greatly important, because whatever we do in life, and we look at our own experience to see the validity of this. If we have a strong wish to do something, we will strive at it. We will overcome any obstacles. We won't be overcome ourselves by any obstacles because of our strong wish. So if we intentionally generated delight in our virtuous activities, we'll want to engage in them more and more. So if you have a wish, for example, to engage in meditation and do so in a sustained way, generating joy in your meditation practice and the results following from it lead to one wanting to do so ever more. So this mind of joyous perseverance, this mind that delights in our virtuous activities, our beneficial activities, this serves to make us want to do so ever more. And all the results that we have mentioned that come from ethical conduct and patience and generosity, these are multiplied due to our ever greater wish to do so more and more. And the specific result that comes in our future lives from joyous perseverance is you'll have a natural inclination to engage in virtue and to turn away from non-virtue. That will come naturally to us. We will naturally not want to bring harm will naturally want to benefit.
Ini molam jadi, dah molam dia kecil mula. Sisa molam jadi, orang tu kewa cima dia, orang tu jika lama cuci, sangi tempat dia jadi, ini kebiasaan dia jadi, ini orang tu cuci jadi, ini buah perah dia, ini penggal dia jadi, ini orang tu sangi syurga cuci, ibarat lagi sebab kontan jadi kalau sama dia ni pembat dah, lagi dah sebab pembat dah je. Lebih那商业学会就是喜欢就是大家你把招牌呢，所以你大家你谁都不รู้啊，你那些啊吃点粮啊，去年的就毛了苗或者为呢，毛了地建修建地，这话起码的，那个这个商业店吧这呀，安全些呀，好不来呀，那这边些呀，我车呀，这里是过的，这里是毛了苗的这些结果的。
So we've spoken now about the benefits that come from generosity and ethics, generosity, patience, and joyous perseverance. And then the last was prayer. So this too is greatly important in that when we make prayers that, for example, in our future lives, in each and every life, we always meet the Buddha Dharma, we generate faith in the Buddha Dharma and our teachers, and we have the opportunity and take that opportunity to spend our time cultivating the minds of the Buddha Dharma within ourselves. These types of prayers are of great importance because they direct our virtue in this direction. So where we can see the validity of this from our own experience is if, say, tomorrow morning we need to get up very early because we need to go to the airport and catch a flight. So we know we cannot afford to oversleep. Maybe we need to get up at the awful hour of 4 a.m. So that's not our habit, but we can't oversleep. So with this commitment that we have tomorrow morning, I have to wake up early, we tend to wake up on time. But so this is the same way that prayer would work. We're directing our mind in a particular direction, and this then serves to direct our virtue to ripen in this way in the future.
Randu Lu no Jack and China Chasaya control the pre-in Sabata. I share some Robert Jin, Sabbat, Tangin, Sabbat, sometimes Chilwa. Or dinner, Navatilia, and then on to get Jiki Yovainata, Sosugi, Jawalam, Majo, Kamachabe, said Mochubache, said Baba, Chikia, Polola, said Mochubache, due to a Jin, Sabbat, there's somebody other to the chair. And these are to give each our share paper to which I pay Yaku Jufon, said Ya, Gajuki Chikawa, Kawaku, Chikawa, Studiche. And these are to give each our the need to pay Yaku to that, Kiwachima and Selam San Yugo, Mato Ibadomi, and the San Yugo, is chewing and Yakuchi to Ada, and the Kiwishin Yakotel shows Ada. And the Digi, Molam Yadide, is indeed to get some non-adia, and the Dingy share to get that. Sometimes you should sometimes Yaman Chedi. That she said it in Dennis, that is a Bush in the Yaman. This was somewhat the Yana and tired that some got a man down to be named to somebody to a cherry water. As Yaman said, the church is a Dennis. But the niggas, Javaina, so Sugi Dennis, Unwal, Yamakiwachima, Milu to Udu, Makiwachima, YouTube page, Yabacharu, Makiwachima. Jinguda number Jikazuri, Umwatch on Kudu, the nigger some woman, the nigger some Madame, so Taratoku, some jet, Taratoya, in some jet, Dira some Baja, and losing Yaman Chevaina, Yawachimala, be a big water, Tala big water to it, and they painted the young woman this Maham. And I'll Chunan, my Chumbigamia, my Dulo, the Lobo Sugin, some Madame, Lobo Sug, some Mada Dulo, Chunan Champion. Lulu Chai, but the Digi, because some dance in Lulu, so subject Chomba dance, the Lumbachago, some Madama Chuna Champion to Lulu Chai, but Nash, Kewachima Hut, Tala Niko, Toya, Uchela, Hoyada, Omba Sawada, the Nigi, some Madama, Taratobu, the Tamji, 동안의 조고 타이가 타바 토고도 선공원 디케지랑 저기 냠낸 제샤바이나 삼다디 야네 야도 야네 삼다디 자야래다 어두 자바이나 저기 don다디 두야지 제사 디리기 셰기 아주 동아세야 디기 두야야 연주기 띠엔디 토비기 띠엔 델레야 냠낸 제리 디제 우레세지 아주 디리기 셰디 디레다.
Then to just briefly summarize the meditation that I presented today. So the first step of the meditation is to serve to generate strength of mind and joy within oneself. So one turns oneself one's attention to the three jewels, generating faith that through cultivating the mind of the Buddha Dharma within oneself, one can attain freedom from suffering, one can attain a state of lasting happiness. And then the second part of this is to generate great joy at the opportunity we've achieved by achieving this human rebirth that is so precious, and precious in terms of what can be achieved on the basis of this very life. So that was the first step in the meditation. The second is to reflect on the suffering experiences that we have in our life and come to generate the strong wish, I never want to suffer like this again. All these problems and difficulties that sometimes seem to fall down on me like rain, I want to be liberated from this. I want to be liberated, in fact, from all forms of suffering, those that I'm manifestly aware of, and those that are subtler and I'm not yet aware of. And here we give rise to a genuine wish to be freed of suffering. And the third step was that of ethical conduct. So it's not to suffer anymore. I must not create those causes. So therefore I commit to not bringing harm to others through my way of thinking, and thereby through my physical behavior and verbal behavior. And the fourth step was, not only do I commit to not bringing harm into the lives of others, I commit to bringing benefit into the lives of others by developing an altruistic attitude, a wish to bring benefit to others, a wish for others to experience happiness. And thereby I will develop this mind, prevent my mind going in a harmful direction, but rather in a beneficial direction, and through this ensure my physical activities and my way of verbally communicating only bring benefit to others. And then the fifth step was that of patience. So patience follows on, because if one's mind is staying calm and spacious in the face of adversity, one is fulfilling one's ethical commitment of not bringing harm to others, and moreover, one is fulfilling one's commitment in terms of generosity to bring benefit to others, because one, being patient, one's mind is calm and one can respond skillfully, diffuse the situation, and thereby one prevents the situation getting worse, and one is fulfilling the commitments already made. So that's the fifth step in the meditation. And the sixth was joyous perseverance, a mind delighting in virtue we are creating. And here we intentionally think of the successes we've had and generate joy, generate the wish to continue to do so. And the last step was that of prayer. So we're making the commitment to continue to train in this way, life after life. And if one engages in this meditation repeatedly over a sustained period, then definitely change will come to one's way of thinking. Because this word meditation, it means, or can be equally translated as habituation or familiarization. Because what meditation is trying to familiarize or habituate ourselves with a new way of thinking and break harmful habituations or familiarizations, those ways of thinking that only lead to harm and suffering. These we try and break, and we try and develop new habits. So this is the meaning of meditation. And by doing so, the more we do so, the stronger that habituation becomes. And then, not only do these minds arise more naturally, with greater ease in meditation, but they start to permeate our activities and our way of interacting with others. So therefore, if you have the wish to experience lasting change, then one needs to do these meditations repeatedly over a sustained period. And in particular, then, if one does so with or just lastly to say, if one does these meditations not even thinking about the results that come in the next life, not even thinking, oh, I want to have good conditions, I want to have a healthy life in my next life, but rather one is sincerely thinking about liberation from suffering or enlightenment, the result of having good rebirths will follow naturally. So if one's goal is enlightenment or liberation, one doesn't need to even have the aspiration for good rebirths, because they will just follow. So for example, if you are fully dressed and you jump into water, you're not going to necessarily have the thought that, oh, I want my clothes to get wet. They're just going to get wet from the activity of jumping into water. So whether you have the wish for your clothes to become soaked or not, it will happen. So likewise, during this meditation, with a sincere wish for liberation or enlightenment, this will lead to good rebirths, whether one specifically sets this as one's objective or not. So that then, in a nutshell, is what we've looked at today. And what we've looked at today is how to use this human life, this life that is so precious, in the most beneficial of ways.